Hey everybody, welcome to Always Good News. My name is Mark Miller. Thanks for joining us again for another episode, and we're excited about tonight. We'll just wait for a few people to join us. Hi Carolyn, good to see you. Nice to see people joining. Hey listen, every week we have people from all over the world, all over Canada watching. So where are you watching from tonight? Let us know. Hi Monica, good to see you. Good to see everybody joining. Let us know, just write in the comment box, maybe your city or your country where you're watching from. And we always love to see that. Hi Gary, good to see you watching. We're going to have a great conversation tonight, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. Let me know in the comment box if you're watching on YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and don't miss any of the other episodes that we have coming. By the way, if you are looking for more of these episodes, you can find them on Billy Graham Canada's IGTV site or Billy Graham Canada YouTube, or you can go to billygraham.ca and you'll find it there as well. So you can check out all the great episodes so far. Hi Hilda, good to see you. Good to see everybody from Arizona. Welcome to Always Good News. Nathan, good to see you. Listen, we've had some fantastic guests on Always Good News over these past several months who have shared some really personal stories and stories of hope in Jesus, and it's been super encouraging, and tonight's going to be no different. And let me just tell you again and remind you again tonight, if you're looking for encouragement, if you need hope, Jesus really is the answer. He's the answer to the sin problem. He's the answer to the horrific racism we're seeing. He's the answer to loneliness and despair. And that's what this is all about, is just giving you hope, hearing stories of God at work. And tonight's going to be awesome. You can have hope and peace, even in the midst of chaos and fear. And so I just want to encourage you to check out the link in our bio or go to billygraham.ca. We're going to have an awesome conversation. I'm going to go ahead and add our very special guest tonight, and we are going to get started. Good morning, everybody. We're glad you're here. Mr. Steve Geyer.
How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm drinking tea out of my Mickey Mouse mug. Life is good.
You're a little blurry.
I'm a little blurry, really?
Is that the weather in Alabama?
Well, actually, we are in the middle of a hailstorm right now in Alabama. We've got weather coming in from it's coming up from the south a little bit there. So I don't think it's part of Laura, but I think it's her cousin. So have you got
maybe it's the Wi-Fi connection? Maybe if we can.
Let me try this. Let me do this. Let me.
Yeah, let's see if we can, because we need to see Steve Geyer and hear from him tonight.
See if that's any better. Is that any better?
It looks like it might be getting a little better.
Yeah. See,
how's that?
There you go. How about that?
Everybody watching from Arizona, all over Canada, Newfoundland, Nova Scotia. How's Steve looking? Is he looking good to you?
Hi, Newfoundland. I miss you. What was it? Some morning this morning. There's tomorrow morning, this morning. This morning's going to be a smarting. Something. Anyway, so I'm practicing. Smart morning.
Well,
morning.
He's trying his best. Well, we have people from Brazil as well watching. It's so good. Let me introduce Steve Geyer, my friend, to everybody that's watching. He's a speaker. He's a comedian, an author. He served in several different pastoral roles. He's led many short-term missions trips and has developed a ministry for families of children with special needs. And now Steve, I've known you for a little over 10 years. And we've done ministry together across Canada, which has been a pleasure. One thing I say, Steve, about you, but I want everybody watching tonight to know, is that Steve is the real deal. And just from spending time with Steve, I can tell you that he loves God and he loves people. And people love him and they're attracted to him. And it's just so clear to me. And, I was thinking today, Steve, as we're getting ready to chat, Proverbs 17:22 says, a joyful heart is good medicine. And when I'm with you, we laugh a lot and there's a lot of joy. And it's so good to have you on Always Good News.
Yeah, we do. We laugh a lot. Sometimes people wonder if we're actually working because it is a lot of fun. But in travel, how touring is. It can be really taxing, and you're in a different city every night, and you're troubleshooting really, you got to troubleshoot. I just show up, and get,
Yeah.
hey, and but yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and I miss it. I tell you, being grounded, not being able to travel right now is just driving me crazy. So
Yeah, I bet.
ask
It's
me, ask me how many Peppa Pig episodes there are. Go ahead, ask me. 300,
Steve, first question tonight. How many Peppa Pig episodes are there?
303. There's
How
303
many?
Peppa Pig episodes. There's 40 Goldie and Bear episodes, and I've seen them all because we take care of our
I was
grandson.
just I was just going to ask, how many have you seen? But listen, we're actually going to get into some questions. But Steve, we have a little tradition here called This or That. I'm going to
Okay.
throw them at you, and people are going to get to know you beyond the intro I just gave you. So here we go. Ready? This or
All right.
that. You pick one. Summer Olympics or Winter Olympics?
Summer.
All right. Zoo
Summer.
or
Hmm?
aquarium?
Oh gosh. Oh man. Oh, my mother was a marine biologist. She's looking down on me from heaven. Aquarium.
Smoothie, milkshake.
Milkshake.
Okay, throwback to the 80s. You ready? Karate Kid, Top Gun.
Karate Kid.
Wax on.
Wax on. Wax on.
Apple, Android.
Apple.
All right. Apostle Paul or King David?
Oh gosh. I have so much in common with both of them because they're both prolific sinners.
Yeah.
I guess Paul, because he went from dark to light, more dramatically. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, last one, and then we'll keep going here. Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean?
I was raised in Florida, so I have to go Atlantic.
Come on, and you know where I am. So
Yes, and so we know what the right coast is.
that was a very smart answer, Mr. Steve.
That is the right coast, man. Absolutely.
Listen, a lot of people are just joining us. Please leave a comment down below. Let us know where you're watching from. It's always encouraging to see where you are. Steve, like I first mentioned when we went live, Steve's a comedian, a pastor, and author, and someone I have a lot of respect for, having spent a lot of time together. But there's more to Steve Geyer than these titles and these roles that you've played. Steve, I would love for you to share with us tonight some of your story. Tell us who you are. Tell us about the comedian thing and how you came to know Christ.
Probably the comedian thing is my whole family's funny. I'm probably, out of my siblings, I have a sister, Maureen, and my brother, Bill, that I grew up with. And out of all three siblings, I'm the least funny, to tell you the truth.
Is that true?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My siblings are hilarious. They are. In fact, my brother used to write. When I was doing the club circuit and had to do comedy competitions and stuff, he would write with me, and my sister's hilarious. And so comedy was of value to us because my mother, God rest her soul, struggled with alcohol for a good part of, actually until about the last few years of her life. And comedy was something that we used as a tool and as a coping mechanism,
Sure.
and so we just naturally were funny. But I was always kind of playing catch up because my siblings are hilarious. And so, but I used comedy more, and my siblings were real protective of me anyway. I was a baby. And so then I used comedy as a way of protecting myself. And so then when I was, I was doing this club called Giggles and different comedy clubs and everything, and the Comedy Corner and all that. And it's different going from comedy clubs to churches. Is two different things. This is back in the 80s. Okay. And so, my first church gig was a little awkward, and you know the story. You've heard me tell the story before, but I'm up there doing my stuff, and I'm thinking, they wanted a comedian, and they wanted a preacher that told funny stories. And so I'm doing my stuff, and it was kind of one of those, from the back of the room you hear, "Crucify him! We want Barabbas!" And so it was one of those, hey, I need to change my material real quick. So ended up, learning, growing, and growing in my faith and everything. But going from doing nightclubs and stuff into churches was real different, and stuff that I thought was okay to say actually wasn't okay to say. It was like, no, you can't say that. I was like, no, okay. Because like right now, see, the way my mind is thinking is that everybody that's watching is assuming that I'm wearing pants, right? And so, and I am, but I want to bring it up. So, and some people are like, oh, I can't believe you. And it's like, it's a joke. It's I'm wearing pants, but you don't know that. So anyway, so that's kind of the way my brain works a little bit. Is that it's kind of sideways, a little abstract, and if I can come around the other side, go around the back door, is a lot more fun.
You were finding some pretty good success, Steve. You were opening for some pretty big comics, kind of growing your following. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. I got to do a spring break thing where I got to open for Billy Crystal, which was really kind of cool, And then I had opened once for Ray Romano from Everybody Loves Raymond. He was on the circuit. I got to do one with him. And then my favorite though was I actually worked a lot with Sinbad. I got to open for him quite a bit, and he was one of my favorite people to work with. He's just really funny guy. He's nice and huge. He's like 6 foot forever. But just a really nice guy, and he really helped me to work clean. I mean, his act is so squeaky clean, and so that really kind of helped me too in the club days. Was watching him, not even say darn, and the place is just exploding. So
I'm curious
Brian
what's that?
Brian Regan was the other one. I got to I started out about the same time as Brian Regan. And Brian is one of my top 2 comics. I love him. I haven't seen him in years, but he was another one that worked real clean, and I really took note of that.
So just want to go back. You were saying you grew up in a home where your mom was an alcoholic, and you guys kind of used comedy to cope. So you didn't grow up in a Christian home per se. Tell us about.
We grew up in a religious home. It was funny. My mom was a very religious one, but she became a Christian. Like, she became a Christian later in life. Her relationship with Jesus became real by the time I had kids. And actually no, she got saved before I'm sorry. She passed away when my kids were little. I remember I was on a tour. I was in Austin. I can tell you where I was. I can tell you exactly where I was. I was in Austin, Texas, and I called home just to check on her because she had been struggling with some things, and she had really sought to straighten out her life, and she was very brave. She went into a rehab facility, and just she was the bravest woman I've ever known. And I called home and I said, "Hey, how you doing?" She goes, "Oh, I'm so glad you called." And my family calls me Stevie, and she's like, "Stevie, I'm so glad you called." And she goes, "Last night I accepted Jesus as my Savior." And that's how she started the conversation. And we had kind of gone back and forth a little bit because I was raised in a very staunch Catholic home. And when I told her I had become a Christian, it really kind of offended her sensibilities a little bit because she was such a staunch Catholic. And but when she received Jesus, she stayed in the Catholic Church, but she embraced my Christianity. She said, I get that you are growing in the Protestant church, and she grew in the Catholic Church. And so it was neat how, it was kind of like our own little Ireland, it was like, the Catholics and the Protestants, we got along, So that was neat. And I think the greatest gift I had in that time was that I finally got to know my mom. Like the last 6 or 7 years of her life, I got to know who she really was. And she was a beautiful and brilliant, very, very funny, very smart. But I didn't know the real her. And it was just a gift from God to get to know her the last few years of her life.
Wow. So when did your relationship with Jesus really become real?
I guess it was probably around 1982. I had graduated from high school in 77. I was kind of, mucking around trying to, figure out, what I wanted to do. I was going to part-time college and stuff. And then I remember just, being miserable and just, it's really not happy. And ended up going to a church that a friend of mine had taken me to way back when I was in high school. And I walked in, and my first thought was, hey, wait till they get a load of me, because I had real long hair. I mean, really, probably longer than you ever saw it. and beard, and I was probably on some form of medication that wasn't probably legal at the time, and or now even. And I just walked into this church, and my first thought was, well, I'm going to scare the hell out of these people. And what happened that night was I got the hell loved out of me, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And they just loved me. They looked at me like, I was just as clean cut and, normal as they were. And they just loved the hell out of me. And, and I say that, kind of tongue in cheek, but it really is true. It's like, I finally understood that without Jesus, I'm not in good shape. This is not a good plan. God has a great plan. And if I would just humble myself get over myself and humble myself and realize there's somebody bigger than me, smarter than me, more powerful than me, and knows everything, it's like, okay. And then the thing that really got me more than anything was the love that is unconditional, is that your love, no matter what you do, what you did. And that was real attractive to me. That was like, you mean I don't have to do this or that? And then so no, God, he loves you he loves you just as messy as you are. And then, but we say this almost cliche-ish, but it really is true. And he also loves you enough not to leave you that way. He can pull you out of that mess. He loves the mess. He loves you, but he can love you out of that mess too. So it was a journey of sorts. And then, so and I struggled. I kind of one foot in the world, one foot in the church for a while. It took me a while to kind of really kind of figure it out. What am I doing here?
It's interesting that you go to church, but feeling like, man, I don't belong here. You almost put the judgment on you before you even experienced any, and actually didn't. You experienced love, but just makes me wonder how many people coming into our churches today feel like they're under the microscope, feel like they're under the spotlight, feel like they don't belong, simply for something silly like how they look or how they dress or any of the surface stuff, when Jesus goes right to the heart and just revolutionizes.
No, I get it. And not only judgment of yourself, like, going that shame of, gosh, I'm a horrible person. But the other thing is judging other people, thinking these are all religious people who are going to judge me. And it was like, the irony was, not only am I judging myself, I'm judging them. And they're like, hey, and it was West Broad Street Missionary Baptist Church in Tampa, Florida. I'll never forget it. And it was where I met the Lord. And and they were sincere. These people were so sincere, and they weren't, it wasn't like, getting a notch on your belt or anything. It was like, oh, I got another one. It was, no, they really cared. And it was amazing.
That's awesome. Now, Steve, you've traveled Canada coast to coast. You've probably been in more places than most Canadians. Tell me what you love about Canada.
Yes, I have, and I'm proud. I'm a proud member of that club. In fact, when I get up in front of audiences in Canada, I'll name places that I've been. Like, I'll start out with the easy ones, like, has anybody ever been to like Toronto? And everybody's like, yeah. And then I go, well, how about Beausejour? And they're like, so what? And how about what is it? Where was I? Lake Mistastany and Chibougamau and Sault Ste. Marie and Echo Bay. Hey, Steve Goodry, Echo Bay. But yeah, I have been in every province and every territory except for none of it. I haven't been to none of it yet.
Okay. What do you love about Canada? What's some of your best stories or best experiences, or what do you notice about us Canadians?
you are painfully kind, painfully polite. Let me say that. Just very polite and very, almost kind of British in some ways, but it's like, it's almost like you're so polite. I want to smack you, because now I'm from the South. We're very polite. We're very accommodating and everything, but we reach our limit, and it's like, boy, you need to get out of here. Right. And you guys are like, just keep it coming. I'm like, man, but, yeah, I'm trying to think. I was, and I tell it, this is a true story. I tell the story all the time. People think I'm making it up, but I was in a Tim Hortons, of course, and I'm standing in line. classic Tony. I'm standing in line. And this is a true story. It's really happened. And, sometimes in the winter, I'll wear cowboy boots. Okay. In the summer, I wear others. But like, you've toured me and where I've worn cowboy boots till you got me hooked on Blundstones. So, I'm standing in line and this lady cut in front of me and she said, "Excuse me." I said, "Yes, ma'am." I backed up. And when I put my heel down, the guy behind me was wearing like Chacos. And I knew that I had stepped on somebody's toes because I could feel them under my boot. And I wheeled around like I was horrified. And I wheeled around and before I could say a word, he goes, "Sorry." And I swear, he goes, "Sorry." He backed up. I said, "Dude, I stepped on you." He goes, "Yeah, I was standing too close, eh?" And I was like, oh my gosh, I just broke this guy's toes and he's apologizing to me, And people think people like, "Oh, you made that up." No, it really happened. This is a true story. So it's like, welcome to Canada.
So you haven't obviously been touring much. COVID-19 has kind of pressed pause on everything in terms of live events. How has that affected not only what you do in terms of events across North America and so on, but even at a deeper level? How's it affected you, Steve?
I'll tell you, it's really been hard. I mean, I joke about the, Peppa Pig episodes and everything and all that. But, it's like a lot of people, I've dealt with some depression, because because my work is people and my work is travel and my work is helping. I can't help, I can't be around people and I can't travel. So it's like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
So, my yard looks great. And my house is clean. There's not a dirty dish in my house. But yeah, and I think like a lot of people, especially if you can't work and then you feel like, well, what am I here for? And so it's great to know that things are loosening up. Like here, where we are in Alabama, it's opened up. You can go to the store, you go to restaurants, you have to wear a mask, but for the most part, and I actually look good in a mask. And I feel horrible saying this, but it makes me look thinner and it covers the gray in my beard. And so when people are like, I'm going to be kind of bummed when they take the masks away because I'm going to probably keep wearing it just because, I look good in it. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. But I did walk into the bank yesterday wearing a mask and I thought, boy, the irony. I'm walking into a bank wearing a mask. But yeah, I think like a lot of people, it has kind of forced people to streamline things you didn't need to do. What's the word I'm looking for? Things that seem so important don't seem as important anymore, in a good way. Like so this and then being able to be with family. Like we were very fortunate. We moved just to be closer to the grandbabies, and so we had them. It was Camp Mimi over here, man. We had the kids and Jude. The oldest grandson was here for a couple of weeks on end. And it was great because I get to buy toys. Yeah,
perspective
for him,
of course.
Of course, it says ages 15 and up, but they're for him when he's older.
Steve, let me ask you just to kind of segue off of that and some of the, what you've been going through, and it's affected us all. But a few years back, you wrote a book, powerful book, called Shameless. And at the end, I want to make sure people know how they can get their hands on it because I'll tell you, it's a read that people need to take in. But it's a book that talks about struggling with past failures and how we often put a variety of masks to cover up those dark hidden places. We don't want people to know the real us, kind of like we talked about earlier. Can you tell us about the book, but really the story and the heart and the experience behind it, what the message of Shameless is?
Yeah, it was actually a blog. I was blogging, and my friend Holly Smith, who is my editor and is actually a co-writer on my new book that's hopefully going to be released pretty soon. We had to push the publishing date back because of the COVID thing. But Holly emailed me. She said, "Hey, you're late." Oh, not late. She said, you're right at the deadline for your blog. And I emailed her and I said, "I can't finish it." And I said, "I'm really struggling with it." And she said, "Well, how many words are you short?" It's a 500-word blog. She said, "How many words are you short?" I said, "Holly, I'm not short, I'm long. It's like 20,000 words. And she said, what? And yeah. So I sent it to her, and then in a couple of days, she got back to me and said, Steve, you need to keep writing this. She goes, I can't put it down. And she said, I'm an editor, and I'm like just lost in the stories. And so because of her and my daughter, it was Holly and my daughter that really got me to write the book, because my daughter was an adult when it was published, and so she was at the house one day, and I printed out the manuscript and everything, and a draft of it, and early on, and she was reading, and she started crying, and she said, Daddy, I never knew any of this stuff. And I said, yeah. I said, I was going to let you know before the book came out. And she said, Daddy, she goes, nobody would know that this is your story because of the way you are with us, the way you are, home. And she said, I would have never known that you went through this. And so, my daughter's just like, Daddy, you gotta publish this. So then Holly really worked her tail off and made it, readable and everything. But it's funny, too. I sent it to a friend of mine. I emailed him and I said, hey, would you read through this? Because for the most part, everybody that was reading it was female, and they all loved it. And then I thought, well, is it will a male audience, because it's pretty vulnerable. And I emailed to a friend of mine, and he said, yeah, I'll have a look at it. And so then he emailed me back a few days later, and he goes, yeah, it's okay. It's just not really hitting me. It's not anything I deal with, and blah, blah, but I'll keep reading it. And man, like 2 or 3 days later, he said, I would call you. He emailed me again. He said, I would call you, but I wouldn't be able to talk through the tears. He said, oh my gosh. And he got into about the 5th chapter, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, I didn't realize how powerful shame was. So the book is basically exposing shame in the way it appears, and how in some ways, some people think shame is cute by the way that, and I take it on in the book about how we communicate with people, and we think we're being funny, or we think we're joking, but the Bible says that when you do that, it's like shooting firebrands into somebody's heart. And the one thing, when I looked at and there's the book, and here's the prophetic nature here. I don't know if it's backwards. I know it's
still real blurry there, Steve. I don't know if you can turn your Wi-Fi off, if that's the problem, but I want to see the cover. It's super blurry. Are you connected to Wi-Fi?
Let me see here. Let me try this.
Technology, we just got to roll with it. It's all good.
Is that working? Anyway, that's the book right there.
No, it's still super blurry, but
okay. Sorry, man. It's just going to be one of those. Anyway.
This is the joy of technology. We can hear you super good, so just keep telling us about the book.
Yeah, so, no. So anyway, then I had other people read it, and it was like, okay. And then right when the book was supposed to be released, I stopped and I said, I'm not real comfortable with some of this. And Holly was like, why? And I said, well, I don't know. I just, it sounds angry to me. And she said, it doesn't sound angry to me at all. And I said, well, I want to be real careful that in my talking about shame, I don't shame anybody else. And so I took it back and I rewrote almost the whole thing, which drove her crazy. And she told me, she said, I like this version better, but the other one was fine. It didn't sound angry. But so it's interesting how many people after a show who have read the book will come up and say things. And I think my favorite thing after a show is not, man, you're really funny, is when somebody comes up and says, thank you for putting words onto my feelings. I felt these things, but I didn't have the words for them. And I didn't know how to communicate to people how I was feeling because I didn't have the words. So that's like, okay, good. Then there you go.
Yeah, it's a powerful message to be set free from that. And ironically enough, we can see you actually super good now, Steve. Show us the cover, because I think it's ironically funny in this moment of...
Okay. Well, the subtitle is Set Free set free from the mask. And it's like,
Wow, this
who knew
book
in
was
2020?
made for now.
Yeah, it was released in 2016. Yeah. So, but but it's and my friend Dougie Jones, the Canadian, did the cover for me. My buddy Dougie Jones, there in Ontario, did the cover.
That's awesome, and it reminds me of the scripture that says, man looks at the outside, but God's looking straight in at our heart. And powerful message. And I want to, at the end, let's make sure we can tell people where they can get that book. But we'll get ready to wrap up here in a second, Steve. But let me just ask you this as we get ready to close tonight. You obviously grew up with some stuff you had to work through on this journey, and some challenges, as really all of us in this thing called life do face from time to time. The Bible says we will have these things and these trials and these struggles. You did the comedy scene. You had a lot of success with that. So you've lived life without Jesus, and now you live life with the truth of who Jesus is. And how has he transformed your life? What would you say to somebody tonight who's maybe searching, or they know Jesus, but yet they're just not satisfied, and they're maybe on a path where they're looking and experimenting and wondering, is this all it's supposed to be?
Yeah, I think, I think it's that when Jesus says, in the parable where he says, the wise man built his house on the rock, but the foolish man built his house on the sand. And what does that mean? Well, it means that storms are inevitable. The rain falls on the just and the unjust. It falls on the righteous and the unrighteous. It falls on everybody. And when storms come, in my simple theology mind is I'd rather go through storms with Jesus than without him, because I've been through storms without him, and it led me to, using chemicals or, things that weren't helpful to me to try to cope with things. And then my journey with was I used to bump into him a lot. Like I'd bump into Jesus, like I'd bump into a person of faith, or I'd bump into something that made sense, or I'd bump into some, a teaching, and I'd hear this or I'd hear that. And I kept bumping into Jesus and bumping into Jesus. And it was never going to work until I made the conscious decision to start walking with him, to say, okay, I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to make this step of faith. I'm going to step out in faith and believe, not because the Bible tells me so, but because I've seen enough evidence in my life. It's like the disciples they didn't believe because the Bible told them so. They believed because of what they saw. And my faith in Jesus, I had no real Bible knowledge. I knew some of the stories, but my faith in Jesus came from what I saw in other people, what I saw in my own life, how things started to change, how I started to change. So I'm glad the Bible tells me so, but for me, when I started walking with Jesus, I didn't need the Bible to tell me so. I saw it. I could tell. I knew it. And it was just, the Bible just kind of confirmed what I had already seen. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It's good. And, sometimes we overcomplicate. I mean, there's obviously an element of faith to this journey, but we can sometimes overcomplicate it and realize, like what you said, storms are going to come regardless. In fact, the coast of the U.S. is seeing a storm, last night, and their storms are coming. Storms are inevitable. Yep. But what's our house built on? And it's the truth of the gospel. And it's like you said, we're going to walk with Jesus, and he's going to walk with us through that. And that really is the good news of the gospel.
And that's where our peace comes from. And that's where our source comes, like everybody's hair is on fire because of, the election and all this stuff. And man, the church needs to keep its head. That's what Paul told Timothy in 2 Timothy 3 and 4. He said, he said, keep your head. In the last days, there's going to be all this trouble. He says, keep your head. And it's like, so we can't, we can't forget that Jesus is the source, and that he's where we get our strength, and that, at the end, he knows what he's doing, and I'm just going to trust him.
Yeah, that's so good. And I know we've had some technical difficulties tonight with some of the
Sorry,
delayed
man.
sound and some of the video, but the truth and some of the
Sorry
no,
about
it's
that.
all good. This is technology. We roll with it and we have these conversations. And man, I hope if you've been watching this episode that it's been an encouragement to you just to hear Steve's story. And Steve, where can people get the book Shameless?
They can get it on, or they can go to Steve Geyer Comedy, SteveGeyerComedy.com, and just send an email. But probably the fastest way is just go through Amazon. Just order it off of Amazon. Amazon.com or Amazon.ca.
All right, I want to encourage you if you're watching tonight. I've read the book. Go to Amazon, search for Shameless by Steve Geyer. You'll find it there. It's so worth the price of the purchase, and you want to read that. And I hope, like I say every week, we are living in crazy times, chaotic times, noisy times. There's so much chaos and just noise coming at us full blast. And this is a time more than ever that we need, like Steve said, to build our life on the rock, who is Christ Jesus. And I just want to encourage you tonight. You know, Jesus said this. He said, I have come that you might have life and life abundantly, life to the fullest. And so many people are searching for things to just find that fullness of life or that abundant life. But the truth is it's found in none other than Jesus. And I want to encourage you tonight, if you're looking, if you're searching, make sure you search for truth. And the Bible says, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He is truth. He's direction. He's the way, and he is the life. And so let me just shout out this website to you. One of our resources is peacewithgod.net. If you're watching tonight and you just want to know more about this, you can chat and connect with people there. And I want to encourage you to check that out. Steve, anything else for the good folks in Canada and everybody around the world that's watching tonight?
Yeah, I'm just bummed that I'm so blurry because over here is my Jesus action figure up there, and you can't see him. I wish it wasn't so blurry because you could see my full size Jesus action figure, or not full size, but 12-inch Jesus action figure, and he talks to me. Push a button and he quotes himself. It's brilliant.
And let me guess, that's one of Jude's toys.
Yeah, that was for yeah.
Well, Steve, it's been an incredible pleasure to have you and to connect with you in this way. I know we haven't seen each other in a while with all of these travel restrictions, but I just want to thank you for your ministry. Thank you for the way you demonstrate just genuine love for God and for people. And man, God bless you. And by the way, everybody, if you're watching, make sure you go to Amazon, grab that book, Shameless. I think it'll be a real blessing to you. So thanks so much for joining us, Steve.
Yeah, and have them go to YouTube and watch my comedy special at the Dry Bar, Steve Geyer Dry Bar Comedy. And like it. Keep liking it.
There you go. Steve Geyer, Dry Bar Comedy. Make sure you go and like that. Thanks again, Steve. God bless.
Yeah, man.
We'll see you next time, everybody.
All right. See you, man.